And I'm Josh.
And this is NFGeeks. All right, Josh, for this episode, you wanted to sort of talk about religion and religious ideas and spirituality, which is a very NF topic, and particularly an ENFJ topic, because ENFJs are often spiritual leaders, either in the most idealistic sense, like perhaps, symbolically, like Buddha, or Jesus or Muhammad, and also in the most horrible sense, like the Branch Davidians and David Koresh and Jim Jones, and
Sure.
any kind of like cult is usually headed by an ENFJ.
Right.
Well, when the cult leader believes in the wackiness of the cult,
He's an ENFJ.
he's an ENFJ.
Because ENFJs have the wholehearted sense of it.
Yeah, so no matter how
like
bananas...
scammers are not ENFJs.
No, they're not. They're trying to just get the money and then they take off. But
ENFJs think like that their path is actually like holy.
Yes, that's right. So if there's if the cult is there's an Atlantis under a bubble dome somewhere and we need to get the ENFJ believes it totally. Yeah. Just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so this is a very ENFJ topic. So why don't you start us off? What is it that you would like to discuss, or what's interesting you on what are you interested in this topic?
I kind of wanted to just go through like the spectrum of all the religions, maybe briefly kind of talk about how they go about achieving like a spirituality. I wanted to like discuss ones that maybe not a lot of people talk about.
Okay, sure. Anyone in particular you'd like to start off with?
Do you want to start off with how they developed, like how they came out, sort of?
Sort of like a chronology?
Sure.
Okay.
So I guess we would start off with being like a pagan or something?
We have to even go before that, because paganism is actually kind of an organized system.
Okay.
Before civilization, or in Neolithic times and Paleolithic times, we had primal religions. And primal religions, and these are things like Native American
animism?
religions. Yes, like animism, supernaturalism, everything has a spirit, the rocks. I mean literally around the rocks, the river, and all that. And then eventually that term, paganism, is when each of these natural elements sort of gets symbolically represented as in terms of ritual. You know what I mean? You start having rituals about it. You start having stories, gods that represent various things. I mean,
deities.
That's right. Paganism comes out of primal religions.
Okay.
So all right. So you would have. So this is how I would say it. First, you have primal religions, and then you have sort of paganistic cult-like things that are that become ever ritualistic. The ritualism then combines with the civic duties of the civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I think you get into more abstract ideas out of that. I think you sort of have a movement that breaks away and says, no, we don't need all these rituals. We don't need all this civic stuff. All we need is X. And of course, that eventually evolves into rituals and everything. But still, I think you have sort of a movement that breaks away from the more ritualistic paganite thing that goes on.
Right.
So, for example, Christianity separates out of Roman paganism. Buddhism breaks out of Hindu. Hinduism is kind of paganistic, or at least the time of Buddha's. The time of Buddha, whenever that was, is kind of paganistic. And it kind of breaks free. That's a short version.
Right.
Okay. So what? All right. So how do you feel about that? And what do you like about that?
And I think that I wanted to go into Christianity and talk about Gnosticism a little bit.
Sure. That's right. I talk about Gnosticism in class sometimes. What do you want to talk about specifically?
I think how it was like the original kind of form of Christianity.
Not exactly. It was sort of a...
It was an earlier version. It was probably one of the earliest versions.
It was certainly influenced by Christianity. It's sort of part Greco-Roman, sort of actually Platonic, in that it has sort of this idealism going on. So it's related to Neoplatonism, which is the religious version of Plato. It has this sort of mythology that there is that the creator of the world is a demiurge, which is an evil demon, and that's why the world is corrupt. Because Platonic thought the world, the physical world is not real.
Right.
It's the world of becoming. And so the idea is that some sort of evil force sort of did this. And so we have to sort of... It's really based on sort of a secret knowledge. Like somehow...
That you have to achieve in order to get to heaven.
That's right. It's kind of like Scientology. And I don't mean that as a joke, or even the dog Scientology, or the dog Gnosticism, for that matter. But Scientology has a similar... structure.
Well, also doesn't Buddha kind of have that? Buddhism kind of have that? Like you have to achieve like a certain like perfection and then you get to go to nirvana? Like you keep getting reborn until you're perfect and then your soul goes to heaven or whatever?
Sure, and a lot of religions have that. I think the difference in Gnosticism is that there's this, it comes from sort of understanding secret philosophies, or what they would consider secret philosophies, documents. It's not ritualistic. Gnosticism isn't ritualistic. It's sort of this weird combination of Greek thought and Greek philosophy and Christianity at the same time, all sort of roped into one thing. Mm-hmm. But it's all about really, but this is why the first, or some of the oldest texts, like even like Gnostic Gospels, and you talk about Gnostic Gospels, are some of the oldest surviving texts and codexes. Is because they were into like the written word, and as opposed to mystery religions. Mystery religions, it was all rituals. Mm-hmm. There was no like philosophy behind it. It was more like, we're going to act out this scene. Sure. And we do all that. So why do you have an interest in Gnosticism? What is your...
I don't know. I like how... I like a lot of their just ideals. Mm-hmm. Like, because they don't really... Because the world is like corrupt, so it makes sense how like the world doesn't fit what you want. And also like I think how they talk about like a conscious energy, like I think that like because the world I think has that. Mm-hmm. I think, and also just their ideas on afterlife I think it makes like more sense. And I don't know, I feel like because it wasn't, I mean, not to say that religion isn't man-made or anything, but because it wasn't like constructed for a certain purpose like maybe modern Christianity is, I think it makes it more, not more right, I wouldn't say, but less tampered with perhaps. So maybe more on the...
That's right, it was a little more
like,
on
the right path maybe.
Sure, I mean there was a part of it, and this is even true about Christianity, and this goes right up your alley, it kind of had this little secret society air to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not everybody could be a Gnostic. You had to be invited. Same with Christianity. You had to recognize the symbols because of persecution or whatever. Right. Or at least perceived persecution. It may not have been actual persecution. But it's sort of like a secret thing. Same thing with the mystery religions, I mean, mm-hmm. It's sort of, there was an air to them that was sort of...
And initiative. I think also being like an NF, like I like magic. So the fact that like Gnostics can do magic, but like Christians can't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If I was, I admit that if I was in antiquity, in the 1st or 2nd century, I would be a Neoplatonist. I would be yes, there's this thing, it's called the One, that's the good, the Plato. I would totally be into Neoplatonism. I know that, because I'm into Plato now. Yeah. So I would be really into it then, because it'd be all over the place. All right, we'll talk about that for a minute. When you say magic, what are you referring to when it comes to religion and spirituality? Because I have an idea about this that I was trying to communicate to Brad, and I don't think I did it as well.
Because Josh he's a robot.
Because he's a robot. That's right. But I didn't communicate it as well as I wanted to.
I think, like, don't they think that, like, Jesus was kind of almost like a spiritual teacher to the apostles? Like, he gave them the secret knowledge.
I mean, in the Gnostic point of view.
In the Gnostic point of view. And, like, it was knowledge about, like, how to live and stuff, but also wasn't it kind of like a secret knowledge of how to actually do miracles like he did or something, and that's what the magic would be for Gnostics?
Well, certainly it comes from the idea in Gnosticism that Jesus is more, a little less human and a little more...
yeah, he's a little more godly than human.
Yes,
in Gnosticism.
Right. And the influence of that in Christianity is the Gospel of John. If there's one gospel that has a Gnostic air to it, is the Gospel of John. Because in the Gospel of John, according to John, I should say it right, the Gospel according to John, Jesus has much more, he's much more in command of what's going on. He's much more, knows what's happening. He's much more sort of magical. Magical's not the right word, I guess. I don't want to make people upset. But he's a little more into, this is what's going on. I know what's happening. I know what's, he's more in control of what's going on. Where he's not sort of like, in the other Gospels, like Luke, he's much more human. He's upset.
Yeah.
You
like ask God for help.
Right, exactly. Whereas he's not exactly doing that in John. It's a little
John,
more.
he has his own help.
Yeah, he is his own help.
Yeah.
In a way. So I think that's a Gnostic influence that connects to what you're talking
there's
about.
more, like, there's a lot of Gospels that from John that aren't in, like, the Holy Christian Bible that are in the Gnostic Bible.
That's right. It's in and you could go read them. They're in a text, you could just buy this, but it was an original codex text called the Nag Hammadi.
Yeah.
And these were Gnostic Gospels and Gnostic readings. And the Republic. The Republic was part of the same book.
Yeah.
You know? So you can see the connection. The Gnostic Gospels are very interesting.
Yeah.
Texts.
Sometimes they differ from Christian Gospels.
Oh, sure.
Like, I was reading, it was like the first page of the book, and I was already like, oh, I'm confused now. Because like, in the regular Bible, doesn't how long does it take before Jesus comes back when he's resurrected?
He comes back in 3 days. Oh, no, when he comes back,
when he resurrects, and then he comes back to give, like, the final message. How long does that take?
You mean like when he finally ascends?
No, he ascends, and then he comes back.
He comes back after the ascension?
Yes.
I don't know that he does.
He does.
So he ascends, and then he comes back?
Yes.
Right, but that's not the same as the resurrection, though. The ascension is like he flies up into the air. Well, I mean, I'm making fun of it now.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. It's before the ascension.
Okay, I don't know.
He resurrects, and then he comes back,
and then
Mary
ascends. Sees him pretty soon, and then, I don't know.
Because,
I don't remember exactly.
I think he comes back for 40 days, right?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
That's, like, the established time.
Yeah.
But, like, because I remember, like, in the Christian Bible, it doesn't really say too much. But I know, like, from like, the message they kind of give is that he comes back kind of quickly. But, like, in the Gnostic one, it takes him, like, 300 days before he comes back. It was almost a whole year.
Really?
Yeah.
So
and
that's pretty interesting.
And in the Christian Bible, I think the first person he sees is, like, Mary or Mary Magdalene.
In one of them, yes.
And then, but, like, in the Gnostic one, and he appears to the apostles separately, yes. Correct? But, like, in the Gnostic one, he appears to, like, all 12 of them at once, or something.
Well, I think that might happen in one of the Gospels. I forget now. But one of the interesting about the Gnostic Gospels is that that's where the whole narrative that's popular now about Jesus and Mary Magdalene kind of being a romantic couple.
Right.
Of some kind.
Like, she has her own gospel in it.
Yes, she does.
Her own writings.
And there's one moment in it where it's a missing word in because in the actual text part of the papyrus is broken, right, and that's what's gone. But it's sort of one of them implies that Jesus and Mary made out.
Yeah, because it says Jesus kissed her, and then they lose the word.
Right.
And they don't know if it was cheek or forehead or lips or whatever it was.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Or hand.
Yeah, it's not your friend if you're making out. You don't make out with your friends. Yeah. Your pals. So if that's... do you have any feelings about that?
I think it's probable. I mean, why not?
Okay.
I mean, there's no... Just because Jesus is the Savior doesn't mean he can't have a wife.
Or at least a girlfriend, right?
Or at least a girl. I mean, if anything, he should have a wife because, wouldn't that support, like, the Christian, like, family structure? Like, get married, have a family.
Oh, well, not just that.
It would kind of, like, show the ideal kind of family situation. So, I mean, why not, right? Given a good example?
Well, not only that, but it seems unusual that a person the age of Jesus in Judaism would not be married. In Judaism, you were married off pretty early.
Right.
Like 17, 18.
And Jesus was
you were
Jewish.
Married, and he was a lot older than that.
Yeah.
He's 30. Maybe he had a wife and he left her. Wouldn't
that be scandalous?
Okay, you think that's crazy, but that's actually what Buddha did. Buddha was married, had a kid, and he was in the palace, and then he went outside and he saw the suffering and the death and the sickness, and then he left them, and went on his trek to be Buddha, So that's not totally bananas. There's another tradition where that happened. Well, no, I don't know if it really happened. But that's part of the narrative of Buddhism that he had a wife and a kid.
Yeah. I want to talk about Buddhism and Hinduism too.
Sure. What do you want to talk about? We got a little bit of time.
I just wanted to I don't really know much about it. So I was just wondering about how they go about their spirituality and their journey, kind of.
Well, I think Hinduism, and this evolved.
Because I know, like, Christianity is a lot of, like, the self.
Sure. Well, it's more of a denial of the self, particularly Buddhism. But in Hinduism, I think there's somewhat of a denial of the self because you're trying to connect with the greater consciousness of the universe. The Atman and whatever. There's this larger consciousness that even Vishnu and Shiva are that's beyond them. This oneness of the universe. And I think they're trying to connect with. I think there's that kind of connection, and that's sort of like Nirvana a little bit, or you can see how Nirvana came out of that. But it's a much more sort of. It's not sort of this individual resurrection and then I get to be an individual in the next world. It's more like sort of dissolving into this much larger thing of consciousness. And once you, reincarnate and make it up the karmic wheel.
Right.
All right. So that's all the time we have, Josh.
Okay.
So thanks a lot.
Thank you.